going on? What's going on? Come on in, come on in. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. We in situated. I know I'm a little late, you know, but we here. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Come on in, y'all. Come on in, come on in. Appreciate y'all. 6:06. How y'all doing? Daphne, what's going on, love? What's going on? Good evening to all y'all. This is part 2, second conversation of the week. You know, we do it twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Come on in, y'all. Appreciate y'all for coming. You know, we here, about to get it in. About to talk about some challenging things. Follow up on what we was talking about earlier this week. The crack and the opioid epidemic and the impact of that, both of them on society. So I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to come on in. Conversation is always going to be around emotional wellness, mental health, and how we can impact each other in positive ways and understanding, impart empathy. So come on in, share the live, share the live, share the live, share the live. Please share the live. Let everybody know we in here. Getting it together. There we go. Share the live, share the live. Appreciate y'all for coming too. So I'm gonna give it about 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna get it cracking. Get it cracking. Type 1 in the chat if you're having a good day. Type 1 in the chat if you're having a good day. If you blessed, if you here, and you know it could have been worse. Type 1 in the chat. Ain't nobody having a good day? Type 1 in the chat. If you're having a bad day, type 2 in the chat. Let me know if you're having a bad day. What's up, Pop? Yeah, you having a good day? All right. Just join a check-in. Just want to do a mental health check-in. You never know what's going on with people. You know, we just move. You know, we always on a schedule, right? We all got to be on I-10 by 10. We never think to see, like, all right, are you all right? Are you living good? You know what I'm saying? Before we go into this, you know what I mean? Before we go into it, you know, I just want to make sure everybody's straight. You know what I'm saying? Make sure everybody good. So it's about 6:09. About 6:09. And we're about to get started. About to get started. So it's 6:10, y'all. Moving this around. Hopefully everybody can see me. Everybody here that's with me. Let's put this over here. So everybody. All right. So hey, let's get started. Make sure everybody cool. All right. So earlier on Tuesday, earlier this week, Tuesday, we was talking about, we started the conversation around crack and the opioid epidemic. So we here Thursday, Wellness Talk Thursday. We're going to continue that conversation. It was a lot of interaction from the last call, and I appreciate y'all interaction, giving me some feedback. You know, let me know how, crack, specifically has impacted you, how opioids have impacted you. So, what came out of the first conversation was we talked about families. And prior to these epidemics of addiction, family structure was different. You know what I'm saying? What up, Carlos? Yeah. Come on in, brother. Come on in. So, yeah, we talked about Tuesday that prior to crack in the 80s, in the late 70s, early 80s, we had family structures that was different. Culture was different. We talked about that. We talked about that 15-year difference, 1985, where it changed, and now you start to see increase in poverty, increase in crime, increase in jail, people going to jail, coming and going home. Now, we also was talking about the impact of all of those things, the impact of crime, the impact of drugs, addiction, and how on the mental level, it causes lack of family structure, moms having to do all the work, dads having to do all the work. That impacted you in so many different ways. And we started talking about the roots. We got to the roots. So it was only an hour. We didn't get to go too deep into the things. But I did listen to you guys and y'all feedback. So some of the things that y'all were talking about was the root, the different age groups. So that's where we're going to start today is we're going to start with the root of addiction. So type 1 in the chat if addiction has impacted you in a major way in your life. Not say you were on anything, but if you had a sister, a brother, a mother, type 1 in the chat if addiction has impacted you in a major way. Because, that's what we're here for. We trying to understand addiction, crack, opioid, heroin, all these different things, why we do it, why it affects us, and how we can help each other. So, appreciate that, Pop. I understand that. Yeah, it's impacted me too. So I want to start there. Let's just start talking about the root of addiction. The root of addiction. Because we know that, we all get affected by addiction. We talked about crack, talked about how it affected, what it looked like. Moms putting babies in trash cans. And the same thing, today with opioid addiction, where we got physical abuse, sexual abuse, all these different types of abuses at an all-time high due to, substance abuse. So let's look at the root common cause of addiction, period, and start from there. And I'll go back over some points that, you guys had for me. And we're going to have a good hour. So I appreciate y'all for being here. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to read y'all the definition as it's seen online. You can look it up, Google. What is the root of addiction? And we're just going to start right there. So, again, type 1 in the chat if you've been impacted by addiction. Not saying that you had an addiction, but if addiction has been present in your life somewhere, type 1 in the chat. I just want to see how many people can relate to the message. How many people here understand, America and what we're struggling with, because I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to give you some insight, and you guys are going to give me some insight. So the root common cause of addiction are 1, chronic stress, history of trauma, mental illness, or family history of addiction. So again, we're going to say chronic stress, a history of trauma, mental illness, and a family history of addiction. Now it also says understanding how these can lead to chronic substance abuse and addiction will help us reduce the risk of becoming addicted. So it's basically saying if you got chronic stress, or if you got a history of trauma or mental illness, or your family, somebody doing it, you're more likely to have a substance abuse. So you more likely participate in substance abuse. So that's why I say, has anybody been impacted? Because we all go through chronic stress, but we deal with it differently. We all go through trauma, but we deal with it differently. All of us deal with some type of mental illness, whether it's our own or somebody else's, but we cope and we deal with it differently. And even in our families with the addiction, we all deal with it differently. I always hear that story where you got 2 children born and to an alcoholic father, and they watch their father drink, but one grows up to never touch alcohol, and the other grows up to be an alcoholic. And just the dynamic of that, like how, your family's addiction can impact you. So let's just look at that. Chronic stress, history of trauma, and illness. So type 1 in the chat if you deal with chronic stress. If you got a lot of stress in your life, and you know what that feel like, type 1 in the chat. Type 2 in the chat if you grew up with a mental illness in your family. Like somebody had a serious mental illness. Type 2 in the chat. So type 1 in the chat if you deal with stress on a high level all the time, or it happens here and there. And type 2 in the chat if you grew up or is somebody in your family that has a mental illness, right? So we're going to, just talk to me. Let me know. Because we got to first understand how we being impacted by these different things. And I think on Tuesday, we talked about, like, the different generations. Like, grandparents now, we were saying that grandparents now are, not the same as before. Parents aren't the same as before. So why is that? And some of the feedback that I got from you guys is, 1 and 2. Hey, what up, Karan? Yeah. So if you're dealing with both substance abuse, history, and mental illness, so that's a higher level of impact. So, and that's what it's saying from this definition: the root cause, chronic stress, history of trauma, mental illness, and a family history of addiction is what leads a person to, a life of addiction. So if we can understand these things, we can do better. So I appreciate you for being honest. I appreciate you, for putting that out there. Because we gotta first be honest in order to move forward. And that's what I was about to go into, is the grandparents, the culture. We were talking about grandparents not being parents no more. We're talking about parents not, fighting for their family no more. And the impact of chronic stress, trauma, and mental health on all of that. So we have, our grandparents now are, let's say, 55 to about 75, right? And a lot of these grandparents may be raising kids or dealing with their own addiction. So you got to think about what they're dealing with. That generation of people from 55 to 75 have dealt with addiction longer than any of us living today. Because you got to think about, we just talked about the crack epidemic and the opioid epidemic, right? So from the end of the 70s to the early 2000s to where we at now. So we didn't bring up heroin and the, heroin epidemic of the 60s, and Vietnam. So our grandparents have been dealing with addiction, dealing with exposure to it for a long time. So we got to think about how it's been passed down. So if grandma and grandpa was watching addiction, chronic stress, it shaped their reality. Was then we fast forward, and that's the 60s and the 70s. So within that 15-year period, this is what was affecting them. It was the heroin and, the chronic stress of racism and, the civil rights movement. They're getting impacted by that daily. And then we see within 15 years when heroin fading out, crack hit, freebasing hit, we start to see us going down as a society. Because before civil rights movement, family structures, we look at the 50s, that's where everybody talk about make America great again. They talking about the 50s and the 40s where, you had one single family home, a person could go to work, come home. Transition in society affected us in a major way because it had to deal with a downward curve. So we thought it was an upward curve, saying we coming out of. Yes, we definitely include alcoholism as an addiction. Definitely. I don't know if you heard that example of the two kids, like I said, growing up with a father that's that's addicted to alcohol, but then one goes on to not take it, not deal with alcohol at all, and the other becomes an alcoholic. So we got to think about how it impacts us, and that's why we're talking about history and the family history of addiction. And I asked y'all to type in the chat if you ever had, if it's in your family, mental illness or addiction, because we dealing with society and the impact of these addictions on us. So historically speaking, like family members who are 50 to 75, they have been dealing with addiction for a long time. So if they've been shaped by addiction, and society has been shaped by addiction, because we know about the war on drugs, we know about the prison industrial system. Let's talk about the actual babies of the 80s, or the actual people of the 80s, and what was gained from actually, the first who came before us, and what was passed down. So we dealing with culture. So now we dealing with our oldest folks, that we can say that's alive today, 75, 80, pray that they still here, down to 55. These folks was dealing with addiction longer than anybody. Then we get the crack, people who are in their 40s, 30s, late 20s, and then we got 20s and below with opioid epidemics, So we got addiction, followed by addictions, followed by addictions. And we got families who've been in every era. They had a family member on heroin, you had a family member on crack, you got a family member on opioids. And it may be somebody super close to you. And along with that came with the mental illnesses, comes with the chronic stress, right? So all of these things, whether it's crack, opioid, marijuana, alcohol, anything in excess that changes your chemistry and the way you deal with people is going to have a major impact on your environment. So we got to first start to realize what we're dealing with, and that's when we start talking about the culture. So we saying it's been going on for a long time. Our grandparents, their parents were the first ones to start dealing with addiction as far as an American problem, right? So we start fast forwarding into today. Now we have a culture of addiction. We have a culture where people just deal with their problems through substance abuse. Because we see in the definition that chronic stress and a history of trauma, are what lead us to addiction. So type 1 in the chat if you got a history of trauma yourself, right? If you got a history of trauma yourself, just thinking about it, did you grow up in an abusive home? Did you grow up being in a racist environment? Like you may have been the only black at your high school. Did you, were you sexually abused? You know what I'm saying? And I'm only asking you to type a 1 in the chat because it's about empathy. It's about you understanding and putting yourself in folks' shoes. Because if you can understand what a person who's addicted is going through, then you can understand, it's not going to be judgment. Because that's another thing we were talking about on Tuesday, is that we judge each other. We leave each other to deal with these issues as alone, as an individual. So type 1 in the chat if you can feel, if you've ever been through something traumatic. It ain't just, abuse or physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. If you was in a car accident, if you were in the military, if you had a lot of deaths in your family, all these things could be seen as traumatic events, especially if you lost your mom, you lost your dad, you lost your brothers and your sisters, or you lost your wife, you lost your husband. These are traumatic experiences that leave people in spaces that is chronic stress. And we all deal with that chronic stress differently. Some of us are built, come from a culture where, they may do things like we talked about last week, do things that bring vitality to your life, like exercise, go out with your girlfriends, play basketball with your boys, do things that kind of add on positive vibes as a way to cope with what's going on. And there's a lot of us out here that do that. But we got to put ourselves in the shoes of folks that, wow, I appreciate that answer, Karanda. We got to, I'm going to get to that. Let me finish this. So we got to put ourselves in people's shoes, because if we know that we've been through it and how it impacted us and the work that we had to go through, everybody may not be as strong as us, and everybody's traumatic experience is different. And that leads me to what Karana said. It says, I think that we often I think often we don't recognize incidents as trauma. We consider it just an occurrence that's natural. We consider it a natural occurrence that you're expected to get over. Facts. So we are in a society that we normalize drama. We normalize stress. And that's why we see in society a high level of maladaptive ways of coping. Because in your statement, when we watch, like just growing up in the neighborhood, it's the moral injury. We see people getting beat up, jumped, and we just like, oh, that's just what go down in the hood. That's not normal behavior. That's antisocial behavior. You know, that corrodes the mind, the body. Even if we say, it's nothing, your body keeps the score. Your body knows what's right and what's wrong. You know, your body picks up on positive frequencies just like it picks up on negative frequencies. So we know when we're in a negative environment how our body feels. We know when we're in a negative situation and how our body feels. And that's what we talking about the first week, is just us understanding our own emotions, us understanding how we feel and how we being impacted. Because when we do that, then we can understand why we do certain things and how we impacted other people. So we starting with addiction so we can get to the root of why we normalize things. You know, we normalize just seeing somebody hit the pipe. We don't ask them, well, that's your business. We don't ask, well, what's going on with you? Why you feel like you need to hit the pipe? You know what I'm saying? What's going on with you? Why you feel like you need to be on Adderall, Xanax? Why you feel like you need to do this to party? Because there's a difference between just having a good time and now this then became a lifestyle. People know you for doing this. You know, it's your business, it's their business, right? So it becomes a culture, and that's what we at today is the culture of addiction, where it's, you know, we're addicted to social media now. We have so many different things as a way to cope for things that we have not addressed. And that becomes our culture. And we got to see that our culture hasn't always been like this. Every time we look at things, you look at things from a historical context. Notice that in the 60s and the 70s, maladaptive behaviors they got checked. They wasn't as freely and openly, you know, you didn't walk around disrespecting adults. You didn't walk around just getting into, you know, what they call it, mischief, you know, criminal activity. You know, it wasn't a thing to do to just be out here and be a thug. Now it's like, I'm thugging. That's the thing. Like, I'm thugging now. Like, that has characterized our existence is addiction, is selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? They say, is it coping or is it escaping? Man, that is a fine line, you know. For some folks, they be saying I'm coping, you know, but it is an escape. Because I think the difference between somebody who's escaping and coping is somebody who's actually understanding of what they're dealing with and they're trying to make positive motion. So you could say I'm trying my best and coping. If you know you got an issue, you're dealing with your issue, but you're making positive motion to try to get over it. Maybe bringing in more information, maybe going to a treatment facility. So you coping the best way you can. Escaping is for those people who, like, they haven't even sat down and did an inventory of why they doing this. They just feel a certain way. They know they feel a certain way. I gotta get up. This pill, this blunt, this needle, it's gonna take care of everything, all my problems. You know, and that's why I'm saying the person who's coping has took some ownership in this. The person who's coping has become aware in my mind. Whereas the person who's escaping is ignorant to their own issues, ignorant to what they're doing. They're just wanting to get away. They're just wanting to feel good. And that, again, is culture. Again, it's culture because we have a culture of escaping. We don't have a culture of doing what we're saying, is understanding the root issues of what we're dealing with. Because it says it right here, even in the definition, understanding how these, as for when they say these, is meaning chronic stress, history of trauma, mental illness, and family history. So understanding how these can lead to chronic substance abuse and addiction will help us reduce the risk of people becoming addicted. So we got to understand the culture. So we got people going through adverse childhood experiences, which include poverty, racism, community violence, separation from their caregiver, whether they're in foster care, death in the family, physical, emotional, sexual abuse, all of these different things that they're going through in life as chronic stress, history of trauma. And if we don't, as people, understand that that's why we got so many people out here addicted to drugs. These are our root problems, is the things that they're going through in life. So if we had moral, if we had a higher moral compass, we would see less addiction. Just by if we express love and empathy in society, if we looked out for each other, if we gave people the benefit of the doubt, you would see better experiences. If we had better relationship building techniques, better communication, people wouldn't think they need to escape. They wouldn't think that, oh, I can't talk to this person, or I got no resources to go to. Well, I got this is all I got, and become reliant on it. So we got to think about culture, how long this been going on, and why it's so entrenched in our culture, in who we are. Appreciate y'all for coming through, because we trying to get to the root of our mental issues as a community, our emotional issues as a community. And one of the major things that's causing us to have so many bad relations, so many maladaptive behaviors in our communities is addiction. We got to first address it, call a spade, put it on the table. Let's deal with it. Let's not just say, oh, that's my uncle, or that's my auntie. Nah, why is your auntie like that? Because most likely she got kids. Most likely they impacted, you impacted, and like Karanda said, this movement is normal. That's a natural occurrence. It's natural. People be addicted to drugs. It's natural. No, it's not natural. It's not natural for us to always be fighting. It's not natural for always to be stressed. It's not natural for us to always want to escape. These things aren't natural. And we see that while we got high death rates from suicide, high death rates from depression, high death rates from obesity. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a difference between overweight and obese. And obese comes from us, another addiction to eating, right? That we can't self-regulate ourselves. But that comes from histories of trauma. They say every addiction ain't going to be crack. But we just bring crack because crack has been here for a long time now. A long time. I'm 33 years old, and it was here before I got here. You know what I'm saying? Like, people were doing crack, and they still doing crack to this day, just like heroin. So we just talking about these things. So I wanna hear from you guys more. Do you think that America has contributed? Type 1 in the chat if you think that America has marketed addiction. Not only have we been led to addiction, but type 1 in the chat if you think that America has, along with our culture and our immediate culture becoming surrounded around addiction, has America fed this? Type 1 in the chat. Has America fed our addiction? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that, ma'am. Miss King, yeah, I appreciate you. Salute to you, ma'am. You doing great things out here. I appreciate that. Man, I appreciate y'all coming out. But type 1 in the chat, man. Type 1 in the chat if you feel like America has contributed to this. America has given. And what I mean by that, so we didn't talk about how long it's been here. We didn't talk about our grandparents dealing with heroin. We talked about, the crack babies. We talked about opioid babies. Now let's talk about America being complicit in this. Is America complicit in this? And what I mean by that, when we turn on the TV, do we see these forms of addictions in our face? When we watch TV, as in movies, are we seeing folks down in 40 ounces? Is the wino always in all of our because we see art imitates life, but life imitates art as well. So what we see, we become the addiction. So growing up, we used to see the little malt liquor what I'm saying, 40 ounces. You used to see the commercial for that. Not they're not realizing that it's a lot of people addicted to that. You forcing that out there, it's like it's sending mixed messages. Like, is it okay to be drinking this 40 ounce? Or, and that's what Quran is saying about this normalization of addiction. So now we got movies where people doing designer drugs and they living life and they having a good time and they popping Molly and they popping X. And it's like, now you being marketed to that your life will be greater by doing these different things. And like you said, promotes it, markets it, and profit from it. Facts. Promotes it, markets it, and profit from it. And that's why I wanted to bring it in. Like, we got to be aware of what we're dealing with. Not only we get impacted by our family and the culture of our hood, we get impacted by society. Society playing on our emotions. Society playing on our eyes, our ears, our heart, right? So this marketing of addiction, if we're not seeing what's going on and knowing what they're trying to do, they want us to drink more. They want us to smoke more. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't market it, right? It's in all of our films. As black people, growing up in the 90s, a lot of our movies was characterized by thugging. I'm talking about gang banging, drug dealing, pimping, all of these things. Like, we didn't have too many, like, the genre was really focused around addiction and criminal activity. Some of our favorite movies, we think about the storylines in our favorite movies, like Jason's Lyric. My man was getting beat, by his dad. Then we think about what's another movie that we all love? Set It Off. We think about these women being sold as a way of coping with their reality. What they doing? They going robbing banks. Dead presidents. Right. My man coming back from Vietnam, dealing with all chronic stress. His wife done cheated on him. The man's still around. He ain't got no money. He's a black man. Society looking at him a certain way. These are realistic character types. There are people in life that have these same things going on. And then when they see themselves in a movie and this person then played out their life that way, it gives them useful information to them as to how they can play it out in their life. So it's like, if I watch this person on TV dealing with their addictions by robbing and stealing, or like, Miss King said, boys in the hood, I'm going to become that persona because that's what's being glorified. I'm going to become that because that's what people like me, that's what they do. People like me, that's what they do. So if, I'm out here, I ain't got no family, the streets is all, that's what's going to love me. The gang going to be there. That's on the gang. So we get into the gang, and then it's, like I said, it was a period of time when media was putting it out there. Colors. You ever seen the movie Colors? Boys in the Hood. What you got? Menace to Society. You got with my boy OG Bobby Johnson. All these different characters that shape our reality. That's marketing addiction. That's marketing maladaptive behaviors. So we got to first, we talked about the history of it. Talked about how long it's been going on. We talked about how it's shaped our culture, right? We talked about the root. That's one thing we really talked about, the root. The chronic stress, the history of trauma, the mental illness, and, the history of family addiction. So we're starting to put this thing together of how addiction is ruling our lives. Because we getting it, it's like all around us and we taking it in. And like Karanda said, we've become so desensitized to it, we don't even approach it with a spirit of resolution, a spirit of restoration, a spirit of growth, of healing. We don't even try to go there with people. We just let people go off in their addiction and just be there like everybody got an addiction. That's how it feels like. That's how it is in society. When we just need to be more, we need to be more educated to what's going on and why people are living in their addictions and how society is aiding that. So we then can start to make changes in our community. And like maybe one person on here do a drive where they just like, if you feel as though you have, homeless people out here, you just giving away free food, shoes, or an act of kindness could go a long way in a lot of people's lives that are trying to use all these different ways to find happiness, to escape. So the more that we start to understand that, imparting empathy, imparting positive experiences, positive vibes to people can be the starting point for helping people get over their mental illness, for helping people get over their addictions. I'm not saying this is the answer. We're not saying that this is the end-all, be-all. And people, you start being nice, people get off. No. We're saying first, start to realize what's going on, and then start to be positive and engage with it as a way to heal folks. Let's all be a part of each other's healing. If we can all be a part of each other's healing, then some of our issues won't be so piercing, like getting stabbed, because we know how to address it as a group, collective mind state, having a group mind that's positive. So we deal with addiction and helping people where they don't feel isolated. They don't feel like they got to handle everything on their own. We don't normalize this behavior where now it's just like children get to see mama and daddy doing this all their life and have no way of understanding really why and how, and we just thinking it's the culture. So, just thinking about all of the things that we done went over, and the time that we've went over it, what are some of your, ways that you think that you could impact people around you? You know what I mean? Just type it in the chat. Is if it's volunteering more, or is it listening more? Is it realizing how you impacting people? Meaning, are you causing other people stress? Are you a person that's, just really antisocial? I mean, when your behaviors cause different waves that impact people. Are you in your family trying to understand what's going on within your family so you can see and articulate to family members why and how things are happening, so we don't just be confused all our lives? Like, type in here, what do you think you could do? First, type 1 in the chat if you feel like you are going to be an active participant in helping, aid people in the way that they need to be aided. Or is it just about you? Type 1 if you're willing to help other people in their healing processes. Not doing nothing extra, just being a positive person. Type 2 if it's all about you. I want to be keep it real. If it's all about you, type 2. If you ain't caring, if you ain't worried about it, if it ain't on your doorstep, type 2, because that's another thing that we gotta talk about. I want to know, like, if you already feel like if it ain't my mom, my brother, or my sister, I don't care. Like, that's their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you on that, type 2. But if you feel like you want aid, if you feel like you're gonna participate in society and a positive way, meaning being a listening ear, showing some empathy, being a non-judgmental, impartial person, type 1. And I see some ones in the chat. Man, we got some folks out here that's taking heed, that want to help other people. And in addiction, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that. It's going to take that. It's going to take us being a source of stability. And we also work for sustainability. But folks may need that, and what I mean, that's not financially, that means sustainably mentally. Sometimes they may just need to come to you and hear a rational mind. Sometimes they may come to you and just need to hear a loving perspective. And that may impact them. Again, I'm going to say this. A random act of kindness can go a long way in a person's life that's full of darkness. So if a person has already written the world off and they using drugs or using whatever to cope and they got an addiction, the fact that you come in showing them love could be the one thing that they need to get away from whatever their addiction is. And just if you on this call, know that we want to start to talk to people and help them become the best knowers of their life. And what I mean by that, self-awareness. People are addicted to drama and a lot of negativity. It's a drug. True. And that's why we have to have these conversations. People are addicted to drama, a lot of negativity. But that comes from, like I was saying in the previous part of this video, is that this become the culture, right? It's become the culture. I mean, you can't argue with it if, like, we all from Philly, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a culture for us to grow up eating cheesesteaks. You don't even think twice about it. We just eat cheesesteaks because we from Philly. It's a cheesesteak. It's a store every corner. You know what they selling. Cheesesteak, hoagie. It's a culture. It's the same thing with the negativity. We grow up in it. We see it. And like the sister said, it becomes normalized. I mean, we become desensitized to it. It happens so much. You see so many people getting slapped up. You see so many people getting abused. You just pray that it don't happen to you. And if you prepare yourself for it, if it will happen to you. You feel what I'm saying? Like, we think about it like that, where it's been and it started 50, 60 years ago. Like, addiction really came on and took hold of us. And that's really where folks haven't had, in society, you don't have to push down a society that's already not, you know what I'm saying, mentally there. You don't have to fight a society that's already confused. They can't even put two hands together to wash the face. You know what I'm saying? Or, can't even come together. Unspoken truth can't reach anyone. That's true. That's true. You can't heal what you don't reveal. And too long, we've been out here lying to ourselves by just saying it'll get better without telling the truth, without being authentic. And that's what we preaching with the social emotional learning. See, this week it's all about self-awareness, social awareness, and responsible decision making. And like Rob said, the drama, people addicted to it. That means they're making bad decisions. Why are they making bad decisions? Is it because of their trauma? Is it because of the culture, right? Is it because they haven't heard the truth as we know it, right? So we got to start to look at, the different indicators, like the different things that people going through that push them to these things. Because our culture is who we are and who we going to be. We can't fight it. I'm wearing Nike right now. I'm in Memphis. This is the Nike capital of the South. I just fit right into the culture, not even thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's culture that drives us. It's what we see. It's what we think. You know what I'm saying? It's what we hear. You know what I'm saying? So that's why so many people are addicted to the drama, because their mama was drama-filled. Their daddy was drama-filled. That's all they know. They ain't never seen a person like us. They ain't never even heard a person like us. It's just like, let's take it back and make it even more simple for that. Just like during the racist times, where majority of communities were white. So they had never seen a black person do certain things before. And then all they see is Birth of a Nation, mammies. So it's understandable that people will think that most black people are either a janitor, a mammy, because that's what they see, that's what they've been told. It's not until they actually experience a black person that they can see it's very dynamic. It's very like, oh, no. All of them ain't the same. All of them ain't. So that's what we're dealing with now, is extending that same, empathy, is understanding that everybody's not the same. All addiction ain't the same. All people haven't been going through the same thing. But we all respond to the same thing, which is the trauma, the addiction, the mental illness. So we all gonna have different ways, because we all dynamic ways of responding to that. So you gotta, and that's what we talking about, generational cycles. You say, in a trapped-minded person will always try to cut corners in a circle, and there aren't any corners in a revolving door. And what you talking about, Rob? Speak about it. Put it out there. Because we got to talk about it. Why are they trying to cut corners? Again, culture. We talking about before. It ain't always been like this. That's what we've been talking about today, is culture. And when did it change? Again, the 60s and the 70s, we had majority of people were in two-parent households in America. By 1985, that dynamic changed due to addiction, social pressures, racism, all of those different things. So culture is being dictated by the times. Just like you can say 2020, culture is being dictated by social media. Social media is dictating what's popping, social media is dictating what's popping, what's hot. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If it ain't on Facebook, folks ain't even really hear about it. So we see how that's what's shaping our environment, that's shaping who we are. So we got to understand, when we say a person who's trapped-minded, why are they trapped? And that's what we're here for, empathy. And I know you're an empathetic person, bro. You know, and just like, you know, Miss Bree, Miss Bella Jean says, generational cycles, or, circumstances that keep repeating themselves. That's what they call intertransgenerational trauma. Trauma that's passed down. So again, if all you see is negativity, and you ain't never been exposed to positivity, then how do you make that? Like, you got to be like a magician. You got to make something out of nothing. And some people can do it. But everybody ain't built for that. That's why you got to be more empathetic. It says they look for fast come up, not building generational wealth. Education. That's why I'm here. Impart equity. Again, social emotional learning. We start with self-awareness. Most of these folks that's addicted, that's dealing with these types of maladaptive behaviors, they have never been taught, or they're in an environment that doesn't serve that. Like, I'm in a drug-infested environment, so having financial literacy is not important. Getting this pack is important. You know what I'm saying? And understanding where and how I can get this pack off is important. Putting food on the table, that's important. We are more survival than thrival because of society's impact on us, our family's impact on us. We got to start to think about it. We playing chess, the game of life, man. You born into this. You're not asked to be born into the situation. You got to play the game as it's given to you. So, like, everything that you're saying, Rob, is like learned, right? Someone had to teach it. Either you had to teach yourself, or someone had to teach it to you. And what we're being taught is addiction. What we're being taught is, hey, when you get upset, go hit that blunt. When you get upset, go get that pill. We're not teaching each other to communicate. Like, even what we doing right now, brother, we communicating. We getting it out there. This feels better instead of just watching somebody go out there and be misunderstood. And that's the only way we're going to start to see some change is, like you said, putting it out there and then understanding why. We don't just say things like black people be on this or white people be on that without understanding why. So we can then start to, pick up on those things and start to assist. My man Jonathan said, would you say that to change our culture on a national or global scale, we need to live the culture we want and pass it on at a local level so it spreads slowly from the bottom, or try to make a gradual sharp change from the top down, or maybe both? So, John, in my opinion, brother, it's a bottom up, right? Because we are the constituents. So if every individual lives by the age-old thing we learn from a child, treat people how you want to be treated. If we just start there, because innately we know what's right and wrong. Like, our heart, when you make certain things, we know what's right and wrong, right? So if we start to do things in a positive manner, where people who around us can see that life is more dynamic than people just don't care, because we live in a world where it's like people just don't give a f. They don't care. They don't care. So if we start to model more caring behavior, more, you never know how you'll impact people. That's why I come on here, because even if I impact one or two people, who are they going to impact? That's why I deal with children, because they get left out, like, but they might be the next Martin Luther King. They might be the next one person to impact a whole generation. So we got to start with just being okay with starting with one person in our community, starting with ourselves, and just being a rock, standing on our own square of goodness. You know what I'm saying? But also hold the top accountable. Meaning once we start to do what we do, they rock to our beat. Meaning if these things don't reflect society, then we need to say and be civically engaged. Going to town hall meetings, speaking up. If you're a social worker, you're a psychologist, if you're a doctor, you're a minister, you need to focus on these things to be out here that really can help. And that goes to what Rob says, is it can't be about profit. We don't value ourselves, but everyone besides off profit. So we can't be in here just in a capitalistic mind state. You got to play the game of capitalism to be successful, but you also have to be understanding that you are a human being and you ain't a machine. So you got emotions, you got a heart, you got a brain, you were a child, right? So, we got to be able to understand that. Like, it ain't about profit. It's about being a human being, being humane, humanity, right? So they say, I think we fear resistance. We do. That's where the support comes from. And that's where John is saying, if you see more people around you that do what you do, you feel confident. So that's why it's confident. It's people who are in addiction, they choose it, and it's something they can do confidently because they see other people doing it. They see other people doing it, it becomes, well, I ain't the only one. I ain't the only one. I ain't going, everybody, it's already out here. But you see, to be a good person, you fear resistance because it's not, in most people's eyes, ain't that many good people out here. So I got to fit in. I can't act too good because I don't want people to look at me and be like, I'm a sucker. You know what I'm saying? I don't want people to look at me and like, I'm a come up. Cause he nice. Oh, he giving. Oh, he empathetic. You feel me? The devil plays on all of that. You know what I mean? So we got to be able to stand in goodness, stand in the light, whether you're religious or not. It's really like, can you be a good person without having everybody in your corner saying you're a good person? Can you know that you're a good person and just do it? Because I think a lot of our fear comes from acceptance and rejection. Like, we're going to get rejected if I'm a good person. If I help this person, I'm going to get rejected. If you get rejected, don't change who you are. It's just you wasn't meant to be for that person. There's somebody else here for you. So, it's a lot of different things as people. We just got to become better. It costs you nothing to be a good person. It costs you nothing to be a good. I'm going to always say that. It costs us nothing. So we always got to keep in mind, are we striving to be the best person we can be? And what does that look like for you? That goes back to our self-awareness, our social awareness, and our decision making. You know what I mean? Are you making positive decisions? Rob, you said keep these babies in the house or on the porch, or let the graveyard babysit your child for life. I'm still on the porch. I'm black, educated man, 34-year-old, no felon, and feared. I'm still on the porch. I mean, man, get it out. That's your experience. That is your experience. But at the same time, man, do you think you want to pass that mentality on to your children? Like, that's how you think. I think similarly, bro. But is that how we want our children to think? We know how that impacted us. But how do we change the way they think so they don't feel like they got to fear the cops? So they don't feel like they can't be who they want to be. I want my child to go out here and regardless of the fact that he's a black man, he feel like he can be whatever he want. Whatever. I don't care. And even if he had to work 10 times harder, he's there for it because that's what he wants. And nothing but God can come between him and what he wants. You feel what I'm saying? That's where I'm at. How do we break the cycle? And that's what we're talking about today. Thank you, Ms. King. We got to break the cycle. What's good for us ain't good for our children. What's good for us, what like Karana said, what's became normal for us, I don't think it's normal to pass it on to our children. Standoffish behavior, non-communication, lack of empathy, fearing society. That's not cool. And the way we help them break the cycle is to understand where that stuff come from. As a black man, the reason we move the way we move is because of so many racist things going on in the society. You know, same thing with white women. They have so many things going on in society. That's why they move the way they move. Everybody. So we have to be able to communicate, see the root cause of it, know, is this something that we want to continue? Can we control for it? How do we control for it? And then once we make that motion, then we start to adapt. Once we think about it, dive deep, we start to adapt. We change our actions. We cannot continue the negative mind state. And brother, it affects all of us. I'm not saying it's you, me, anybody on this call, but the negative mind state is what comes from this addiction, this crime, this poverty, the adverse childhood experiences. Now, the once positive, innocent person that lived within you is in a dark, cynical place because society has marketed the type of lifestyle that they want you to be, because it's in our movies, it's in our commercials. You know, we don't deal with mental health. You rarely see black males in a position where mental health is being talked about. You rarely see black women in a position where they're being in a healthy relationship. Like, you rarely see society putting us in these images, these portraying us in a way that reflects the people that we want to be. So we got to constantly fight that negative mind. So we got to first say that we fighting it, and then two, how do you fight it? And that's doing the things that we saying, being positive, you know, being around other positive people, understanding your life, why it is the way you do what you do. So we teach ourselves, we teach them our lessons in life and show them how to move in a room full of vultures. That's so true. And that's why I need for us to get off of this every man for theyself mentality. Because every man for theyself is what's leading to, you know, addiction, trauma. You know, we see things going on, we don't even want to call the cops. Now, how does that person who actually getting beat up or shot, or they out here alone? So we letting the cycle, we keep talking about cycle, but we not participating in actually breaking the cycles. We're standing on the sideline. And at war, there's either you on the side of, you know, killing and getting all this stuff over, or you on the other side saying there is no middle ground, meaning you either for or against. There is no middle ground. And your silence is what makes you complicit. Your silence is what makes you you are for whatever. The people who are against it are going to speak up. The people who are against it are going to stand there in the light. You know what's right in a room full of wrong, right? And you're willing to die for it. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of mentality that we need to impart to our children. That regardless of the world being negative, be positive. Don't let the world corrupt you. Don't let the world take away your innocence. That's the stuff that we got to take. Don't normalize being a person who deals with life from a negative point of view. Because when we start to do that, we isolate ourselves. We don't practice good, healthy, social, emotional practice. We don't have good emotional literacy, meaning we're not worried about how we impact people. We're not worried about how people are impacted. We're not worried about being mindful in the moment or understanding, you know what I'm saying, communication and how communication can be effective. Like we don't make that a priority when we look at life from a negative point of view and we glorify it. We got to stop, one, glorifying it, and then two, normalizing it. Meaning I cannot be looking at life through the lenses of this negative society. There's things to be grateful about, to have gratitude. There are things in your life to be grateful about. We got to teach our children to be more grateful. We got to teach our children that life isn't all one thing. Everybody ain't all good. Everything ain't all bad. And you got to be able to deal with it from a point of centeredness. I mean, I see this, but I'm not going to let it impact me, because life ain't all bad and life ain't all good. So I know that, and I'm ready for it, right? And these are the tools that we can help children to break the cycle of addiction. Because if they feel like they can't talk to you, if they feel like they ain't got nobody, who's going to be their buddy? It's like Richard Pryor. He said the pipe just kept calling me. It just kept calling me. You know, it's going to keep calling them because it's a good time. They feel like that high always going to be there. They feel secure in that high. They feel secure in whatever it is, whether it's food, whatever. But if we're not willing to extend a positive experience to people for nothing without charging them, then we're going to start to continue to see some of these things. So just being a positive person. And that's part of what we're doing here is just extending love. Lead by love. That's what we said last time. Lead by example, lead by love. Be willing to extend your knowledge to others, not just your family members. Our kids desperate for positive behavior. Yes. We got to be out here. That was the thing. That was the culture change. We used to be out here extending our knowledge to each other. Used to be out here standing outside talking to our neighbors. Now we don't even interact with our neighbors. We don't even care what our neighbors got going on. We used to be in each other's business in a good way because it was a community, it was a village. So we did things that were, group-minded. And now we see that our kids are starving for that. Because the minute you put kids that never had it in a rich environment where love is promoted, where vulnerability is promoted, where acceptance is promoted, they're going to thrive. I done worked in the hoodest of the hoodest places where you talking about people coming from all types of backgrounds you could never even imagine. But the minute you start extending love, the minute you start extending a little eye to them, giving them attention, making them feel accepted, it changes their life. I got people now that I ain't worked with them in 5-6 years. And I may have only been with them 2-3 months. But they call me and they be like, man, you had a major impact. And all I do is be positive. That's all I do. That's my mode. That's my philosophy for breaking the cycle. Of everything that I've come into contact with is first understanding what people got going on, extending love, and loving them through the process. And love doesn't always exist like people just think it's all sappy. It's all, hugs and kisses. Love is dynamic, man. You need to understand what love is. Love is just listening sometimes and being able to self-manage your own, because I love this person. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to educate ourselves. We got to become more self-aware to why you can't do a certain thing that may be needed or why you may not have the skill. Just understanding these things. It says, how many of y'all know y'all neighbors? We are so isolated. Facts. That's why in order to get out of the issues of today, addiction, abuse, racism, financial, social, economic, communication, we got to know each other. If we shared information, you might got an 850 credit score right now. You feel me? If I know my neighbor may be able to impart some information that can bring my financial knowledge up. Or did you know that this stock right here? Or did you know that this is whooped up the bam? Like, that's it. We got to stop being so antisocial. And that's what I brought up the marketing of America, because America plays on all of this. America plays on all of this stuff. America isolates you and makes you feel good in your isolation because it plays on your fear. We fear each other. We fear experiences where we think the worst is going to happen before we assume the positivity. And that goes back to our optimism. How optimistic about life are you? Are we going into life thinking life is going to affect us in a major way before we even do a thing? Or are we giving it the benefit of the doubt that there's something greater in control, that all things are working to my greater good, and that there's a lesson learned, whether I think it's positive or negative. Jonathan, I've been blessed with a neighbor who values getting to know your neighbors. Because of him, I started meeting folks around the neighborhood and actually building a community. Facts, John. That's where it starts. More of it. More of it. Yes, I need to do better. Yes, Miss Kane. Yes. It goes back to fear stimulated by trauma. We 80s kids grew up where strangers' danger and just say no was promoted. Right. Again, culture, we were taught about villains and communities, and I think that bred the privacy fence. Yes. My comment is a little late, but I'm at work. No, it's right on time. It's right on time. Right on time. We are in a society that we move off of what is presented to us. So the fact that, and what happens to us, because we go to school with people who've been sexually abused, physically abused. My high school experience, my first year in high school, somebody was kidnapped. My second year in high school, somebody was killed. My third year in high school, somebody got hit by a car, murdered. My 12th grade year, the girl was taken, moved to another part of the city, raped, beaten, chopped up, burnt, put in a barrel, and then put in another part of the city. This is somebody I knew physically. No one. I never had no counseling. I never had nobody at the school came to talk to us. It was just like we said earlier, it was normal behavior. So it was normal that this girl that I knew, she was a cheerleader. You feel what I'm saying? That we used to, one of my homies was her boyfriend. I knew her. It's just normal that today she gone and something major happened to us. Happened to her. That impacted me. So now I'm moving differently. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving in a way I don't trust folks. I remember what happened. It's all the trauma. It's the history of trauma. So you right on time with that. And I hope we all taking notes, Peyton. I hope we all taking notes. Because we got to be able to be expressive. We got to be able to articulate our feelings, being authentic. Because if we don't, we're going to still continue to go down the road we're going down. Where it's a lack of connectedness. You know what I'm saying? We go live twice a week, Miss Kane, twice a week. This is part 2 of the opioid epidemic, crack epidemic. I'm glad y'all here. We've been on about an hour. I usually do an hour each Tuesday and Thursday. I'm glad y'all came. If y'all got any questions, I'm always available. You'll hit me up through Facebook or type in Unified Stance Family Services or U.S. Family Services. Click, follow the page. I'll be putting up information. All of our lives will be on there. So this is for y'all because coming soon will be support groups. I also have family consulting. So if you have somebody who's going through issues and you're trying to figure out where they need to be, what resources they need, these are the things that I'm going to be promoting. But I wanted to first just get y'all galvanized. I wanted to first let y'all know what information is out there that y'all may not even be thinking about and give y'all a small taste of what an experience would be like with, coming to my programming. Because leaving these things, I want y'all to feel more impacted in a positive way, feeling like a higher sense of emotional wellness. And I want you to feel like you got tools to better society in simple ways. Not saying you got the code to crack, the biggest issues in life. Nah, but like Jonathan said, in our own small community, to start to build a community, a positive community. And to be able to stand in truth and positivity and not be swayed by the tide of darkness, right? So I was thinking that too. It's been a pleasure listening and interact with everyone. Great job. I need to keep appreciate y'all. Again, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here. Next week, we're gonna be talking about financial literacy and the impact of financial literacy on America, emotional and mental health. Yes, I got you. I still have the same number. Everything is, and then my number's on my page as well. If y'all want to get in contact with me, again, Unified Stance Family Services. U.S. Family Services on Facebook. Website coming soon. But yeah, just my number is on the page. If anybody want to refer somebody to me, want to get with me about something, or you obviously if you on this live right now, you my friend. So you just inbox me, and we'll go from there. Again, we're gonna have some rites of passages for the children and adults, some support groups, and I'm just gonna put my services out there. Not yet. I don't want to overload y'all because I'm not trying to just get money from y'all. I want to see what we can do as a team. What type of information? I want to talk to y'all. Like today, we talked about community. We talked about fear. We talked about, folks having trauma in their life. We want to just get the information out there to see that the work needs to be done. And then when y'all say, well, what's next? How do I do the work? I'm here for you. So, again, we spent about an hour. I appreciate y'all. Y'all making this easy for me, man. Y'all making this real easy for me. It's like I get on here, my brother Juice, you know what I'm saying? My pop, they give me good review feedback. Y'all get on here. So we good. Like any topics y'all think y'all might want to talk about, inbox me. Any specific information you might want that you think I may be able to impart to you, inbox me. Call me. And we're going to put it on the live. We're going to continue this mission, this campaign for equity. That's what it's all about when Unified stands Family Services. Equity. And equity is when you get the resources and the information to empower you, to put you at the same position as somebody who already had the information. So I'm giving this to you. That's why next week we're going to start with financial literacy, credit cards, wealth, real estate, all these different things, and how certain folks were kept out of it. Certain folks had, just the shape of American culture and financial literacy, because we live in a capitalistic society. So capitalism itself affects our mental and our emotion. So we started with addiction, right? Well, we started with emotional learning and emotional literacy and understanding what that was. This week we started talking about addiction and family, crack, opioid epidemic. Next week we're going to talk about financial literacy and the impact of financial literacy on us and our emotional and our mental health. So if you got any questions, I might have a special guest for y'all next week. Somebody that, can provide y'all some awesome financial tools, awesome financial resources on top of what I'm going to give you guys. So just stay tuned. Click, like, and share the live. Click, like, and share the live. Please click, like, and share the live, because I just want this information to get out here. I don't care if 1,000, 100,000 people get it. I just want that one person that need it to get it. That one person that's searching for it. I want them to get it. I want you to post it so that when they look on your timeline, man, I needed that. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate y'all. I ain't going to preach to y'all too long. I love the engagement. Ladies, fellas, I want y'all to have a great weekend. And we're going to see y'all next week. And again, if y'all got any questions, inbox me, Unified Stands Family Services, or Hanif Akinyemi. And man, I love y'all again. And y'all have a blessed one. Peace and blessings.